One that really rocked my world a lot, I would say 2021, was The Way of the Superior Man by David Data. This is going to sound funny, but a lot of men are struggling to be men right now. And I say that as if I have everything figured out, but it just gave me a lot of confidence to know the specific differences between what we would consider masculine and feminine energy, or men and women. A lot of it, I think I was aware of subconsciously, but it helps you become a better spouse, truly a better man to those around you. And then I think if you're a woman, you can get a lot out of it too, because it shows you how your man should be acting.
Your network is your net worth. Come listen to some of the most successful people I know share invaluable knowledge, stories, and advice in real estate, business, and beyond. This is Weiss Advice. Whether you want to take your business or personal life to the next level, look no further.
Welcome back to another episode of Weiss Advice. It's me, your host, Yona Weiss, back from the hiatus and grateful to be here with an awesome guest today. We got Adam Carswell in the house. Long time coming, long time fan, long time listener, first time caller, right? Adam, I should preface this, by the way, he takes responsibility for, or credit, I should say, for Weiss Advice. Because, funny story, years ago before I even had the podcast, years ago on LinkedIn, I was looking for like personalized hashtags was like a thing. Everyone was coming out with like their own personalized hashtag. And it was like the newest thing on LinkedIn. It was like 4 years ago. And I was like trying to come up with ones and put out a post there, like people put your best personalized hashtag for me. And then Adam put in there Weiss Advice. And I was like, hey, if I ever have a podcast, that's what I'm going to call it. And lo and behold, a year later, we launched the Weiss Advice podcast. So thank you to Adam. Thank you for joining me and welcome to the show.
Completely the cliche words to say, but I really mean it. Humbled, honored, blessed, grateful to be here, especially taking a look at our journey of getting to know each other, which has been at least 5 years looking at it now. And I forgot that I knew that I had did the hashtag Weiss Advice. I couldn't remember why. You're right. There was a phase on LinkedIn where it was really cool for you to have your own hashtag and you could organize your posts there. So that's awesome. But I'm looking forward to hanging out with you today.
I'm so grateful. Yeah. Thank you so much for joining me on the show. And Adam is the host of an incredible podcast that I was a guest on years ago. This going back, I don't know, you're up to 300, 400 episodes now. I think I was in like the first 20 or 30 probably. It's like you said, it's been a long time coming. We've grown the friendship over the years, collaborated on a lot of things, and we're grateful to meet in person last year as well for the first time in Charlotte. An awesome event. And now we keep going with the RaiseMasters. So I'd love to jump in before we get into the RaiseMasters. I know that's something that you are passionate about, something that you are very involved in on a day-to-day basis. But before we do that, I want to give our listeners a little bit more background. Who is the Adam Carswell?
Well, I came into existence after the Yona Weiss brought me onto his podcast. So here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Born and raised in Cleveland, Ohio, went to college a little bit north of Pittsburgh. So yes, I was a Cleveland Browns fan living in Steeler Nation, which was interesting, but stayed true to my roots. Played basketball and ran track and field at Westminster College, where I'm thankful to say a year ago, right around this time, I was inducted into the Hall of Fame there, which is pretty cool.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. Then basketball and academics both brought me, of all places, to Belize, where I got my master's, and then I played basketball at the school I was getting my degree at. It's not an NCAA school, so Belize is just the Wild West in general. If you've been there, played college hoops in Belize for a year. I ended up becoming the head coach at the school I was at the year later. I won a national championship as a player, and then as a coach, played semi-pro for a season as well. And then I figured out I do like basketball, but I don't really love it. It just served as a ticket to get me to start seeing the world and new experiences. Moved back to the States, didn't want to go back to Cleveland where I was from, still wanted to feel adventurous. So I ended up in Washington, D.C., managing paint stores for Sherwin-Williams. It was like just doing what the parents always dreamed of. Go to school, get a good job with a Fortune 500, work your way up the ladder. The American dream. Couldn't be anything better than that. But I'd say thankfully, I have a friend who recommended Rich Dad, Poor Dad to me when I was there. And I started realizing there is, as much as I did like my job at the time, there was a ceiling there. And the people who I admired and looked up to, who were high-income W-2 employees, and I'm sure we've got some of those listening to this call here today. And don't worry, I know I jumped out of the rat race when I was 26, but even if you're in your 40s, it's not too late. And I'm thankful I did. And I pursued real estate. I became a realtor, with Remax Distinctive in McLean, Virginia. Shout out to the guy who's still the broker there, Andrew Reamer, one of the first true mentors in my life. I was a realtor there with them for a couple of years, and then I stumbled upon this guy named Hunter Thompson on a podcast in October 2017, so 6 years ago, basically as of this recording.
Yeah.
And I said, wow, all I ever even had heard of about real estate until that point was HGTV stuff, fix and flip, just the transactional side of the business,
Right.
brokerage side of the business. I'd never really heard of or thought about working with investors. And this was also, Hunter was talking about self-storage and mobile home parks. Those became both cool, I'd say, within the past 3 years. But mobile home parks were not, 2016, 2017, they weren't being talked about like they are now. So it just really, I was like, wow, this is a way that I could go. I don't know anything about it. I reached out to Hunter. I said, hey, can you please teach me? One thing you'll find in the world of paid education, especially in the real estate space, unfortunately, there is a lot of BS out there.
Yeah. A
And
lot of
Hunter knew that.
gurus. Yeah.
A lot of gurus. And Hunter was aware of that. And so because of that, he actually stayed away from this side of the business for a long time, even though people had been asking him to teach them. The story goes, I was just the straw that broke the camel's back. He was the reluctant hero that started teaching people. And I'm thankful that he did, because it did change my life. And now in working with him since being one of his first mentees, I have physically seen his work as an educator change the lives of hundreds, if not thousands of people. And he still walks it like he talks it on the private equity side of our company, which is really important because a lot of people go the education direction and then they never look back. So that's been my story, my journey. And then we launched RaiseMasters, the #1 mastermind for elite capital raisers, basically with me, Hunter, and a virtual assistant in December 2020. And here we are now. We've got a team of, I don't know, at least 15 on the educational side of the company. And then we're also still scaling the private equity side of the company. And Yona, I do like typical entrepreneur. Like I probably do too many things outside of just working with Hunter, but I can't help it. It's fun. So here we are.
When you find something that you love and the people that you work with, that you enjoy working with, you just want to do more of that, right? Yes, there are always going to be other projects, especially as an entrepreneur, someone who's interested in that, to be doing other things. But if you can double down and triple down, as I know you have, on the things that you're good at and you enjoy, you just do it more. And I know you have other things. I know you have, like you said, you have a podcast, you have the thing with Lieberland. I don't know if you're still involved with that, the Lieberland stuff, but there's so much going on. But again, the RaiseMasters, if you guys don't know what that is, it's an elite mastermind, essentially what it is. It's like a group, now not so elite anymore, to be honest, like 400 people, but it's still very elite in terms of providing that networking, providing that education, and which I've been a part of for the last year and a half, and just have gleaned so much from that group of people and the close proximity to yourself, to Hunter, and to dozens, maybe hundreds, but dozens of people that I've really fostered and grown really strong relationships with in the business.
I'm happy you mentioned that too. And thank you. That's one thing as time goes by, and we've seen since COVID, more and more e-learning platforms and info products are coming out. I can confidently say the one thing that has and will continue to set us apart is our niche focus in capital raising, yes, but the network. To have people like you, and I'll just name a few, Brian Spear, Reed Goosens, Rob Beardsley, we love Christopher Nelson, Ben Frazier, yeah. And then Hunter keeps it close to his chest, but I know he's got a pretty deep Rolodex as well, people that aren't even in this group yet. So we're just really proud of what we built, bringing people together, which you're also a professional at.
Absolutely. I mean, and you are also like a networker extraordinaire, which is really what brought us together in the first place. So thank you so much for being that, and being that light, really encouraging me to join the group, because like I said, I've gotten a tremendous amount out of it, even though the intention of the group really is to train people and give them the tools to be the best kind of capital raisers that they can be. I haven't really gone down that path too much, so it's really it's my own fault that, and every time I'm on a call with Cam, a shout out to Cam, who's the court, I don't know what his official title is, but he's like the coach coordinating with people, setting up monthly or quarterly calls with people. I tell him every time, like, listen.
I know, because Cam, I hope you listen to this, because he said the court, and then he stopped. I was going to say, was he going to call him the court jester? Because he could be that too. Cam's awesome. I love Cam.
He's amazing. But every time I jump on a call with him, and I do it out of respect, because I know he wants to do it. He wants to help you. He wants to encourage people to be the best and get the most out of the platform and the group. I tell him, listen, I'm not like everyone else. I'm not interested in making as much money as possible. I'm not interested it's like, what are your goals in capital raising? I don't really have any.
I know one thing that I've seen it happen to you often because you've built up a significant email list and following with this show and everything
Yeah.
that you do now. How often it happens to you? At least got to be once a month, maybe more frequent. People are like, are you gonna monetize your
Yeah, right.
contacts? Come on, Yona. You have 100,000 people that follow you. You gonna do anything with it? And I like that you're always like, maybe not right now.
Yeah, it's never been my intention. And obviously the people who are listening to this are like thinking, yeah, wait a second. I signed up on your website like a year ago and haven't even heard from you yet. What's the deal, Yona? Like, we want to hear from you. If you tune into the podcast every week, hopefully you're hearing from me in that way, and you know what's going on in our lives and what we're up to. And when the time does come, yes, we will have some deals. We'll bring people together to find the best type of deals to go. Yeah. Thank you. Shout out to Cam again, just for being that supportive role. And to you as well, Adam. What kind of drives you in terms of building this community and doing that together with Hunter? You mentioned like the private equity side of things going on, which you didn't really get into, but I'm just curious, like starting it a couple years ago and then continuing to grow it. Is there like an end goal, or what just continues to drive you in doing it?
I love this question because it's one of the key questions that I'll ask people when seeing if they're a good fit for the mastermind. It's plain and simple. What's driving you? And many will beat around the bush and they'll say, I love the art of the deal. Something that just sounds good. I love playing real life Monopoly. It's no, come on, family,
Yeah.
charitable causes, whatever. There's something else going on here that's making you want to do this besides just loving to make the cash register ring, because otherwise you're just going to get burned out. For me, I'm happy to say that I'm at a point in my life now where I'm a father of one, soon to be two, and I'm eager to just learn from your experiences as a father of 6. Yeah. It changes everything for the better. I can't believe that only a couple of years ago, I wasn't being driven by wanting to build something for my kids and those around me. So that's what I would say one of the most important things that's driving me is happy wife, happy life, doing whatever I can to serve my wife, make Nikki happy. Shout out to Nikki. Give my kids a better life than I had. And it's not like I had a bad life, but just want to give them better and propel that success forward. And then personally, one thing, and you've observed this, and I've mentioned Belize opened my eyes to this. I've been to about 15 or 16 different countries. All of my work has always been remote. I do love, given the opportunity, just being able to pick up for 1 week to a month and just go somewhere. Yeah. We were going to do this interview like a month ago, and then a hurricane came to the Gulf Coast of Florida. So we went up to Georgia basically for a week. We just went to an Airbnb for a week, and it was like a shifting of gears, a change of environment, living in an area of Georgia for a week that we have never, ever gone to. My wife getting to see what like the true kind of like South feel is. Just experiences. The more you can fill your life with experiences, I think the slower along it moves and the more enjoyable it becomes. So
For sure.
being able to just travel around, bring my family with me and do that, I really do love those moments. I would say those are the keys to what's driving me. Sprinkled in with, I've recently fallen in love with the creation of music. You've probably seen me posting a little bit about that.
Oh yeah. DJ, couple that with your TikTok dances. Come on.
I haven't posted any dancing in a while. You're right. I might need to get back into that. But yeah, those are all the flavors of life that make it worth doing what I do daily, worth it. And thankfully what I do daily does come natural and it's a lot of fun too.
Yeah. And that's so important. Going back to what you talking about, the traveling and just seeing different places, different people, and just those environments, pulling yourself out of your regular kind of scheduled program and being able to do that. And being in a place where you can work remotely basically from anywhere makes it so much easier, which that's just a blessing in of itself. But I recall, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know if it still is, but when I was on your podcast about 4 years ago, one of the questions you ask your guests is like, what's your favorite city in the world that you visited? Or maybe not visit. I don't know exactly what the question is. You can correct me. But it just goes to show, because it comes from a place of someone who's very eager to see the world and someone's eager to travel and see what's out there.
I'm of the belief that, and I know we both believe in a higher power, a creative source. God put us on this planet to experience as much as we can.
Mm.
And I just could never see myself being someone who just stays in one vicinity forever. I got to go see what God's got for us out here.
So amazing. Is that still one of your questions on the show about what's your favorite city?
I really find it interesting. Some of the things that you reference from my show, especially, I think if you guys want to listen to Yona's interview,
it's probably changed.
It might only be on YouTube, because I had a moment as a podcaster that was very devastating at the time. I was using Anchor to upload my show, and I'm not, do you use Anchor?
No, so we've been using Buzzsprout from the
Okay. I think paid services for hosting is the way to go because Anchor was free. So I was doing it because it was getting the show on all the platforms for free. I posted an episode that had maybe like some copyrighted music in it or something. And instead of just pulling the episode, they just shut the whole show down.
Wow.
And since I'm not paying them, they probably don't care.
Right.
So I tried tweeting them, email, all these things in 2020. And so like my first, I don't know, it was like 120 episodes just disappeared. They're on like random spots across the internet. But that's a heads up to anyone who's podcasting if you're taking notes right now. One, try not to use copyrighted music. It's the first thing. But two, see if you can find a paid service to host your show just in case.
Totally worth it. Yeah.
For free. They're not going to care if you do hit some roadblocks. But anyways, I still use those questions. For the past couple hundred episodes, actually, Dream Chasers has been predominantly a solo cast format. I'll do a lot of walk and talk episodes, and then periodically when there's someone who I just really want to talk to, then we'll do an interview. So I haven't used those questions in a while, but you're making me feel young again.
Oh, first of all, that's a crazy story. And I'm glad you share that because you don't know any better. People starting out in podcasting, it's such a fun medium and it's so easy to do. You can literally take your phone, have this free app, Anchor, and just upload it and put it on. And it gets out on Spotify and pulling all this stuff for free. And it's just great. But you have to know some of the downsides of that. So I'm glad you brought that to light. It is unfortunate. And I hope there's still some way to find the dream.
They are sprinkled across the internet. Like there's certain websites that picked it up. We'll just say in the first 120 episodes, like podbean.com or something like that. You can find all the original episodes of Dream Chasers there. But that's the other thing too, is you just get better as time goes by. It kills me to go back and listen to the first 100 episodes. Like, man, is that how I used to do?
That's funny. It's true. You do grow, and everything in life, you grow and you transform into newer things and different things. And it's fun to look back and see where you came from and see what you were doing earlier on. It's similar to what I did starting the podcast or listening to some of the first episodes I did as a guest, going back to Joe Fairless' best ever podcast, which was one of the first podcast episodes I ever did. It was just, it's like horrifying almost to listen to that 5 years ago. Like, what was I talking about? Okay. But you get better and you grow. So that's what life's all about.
It's such good practice from a communication perspective. I think that people really do underestimate the value in being a good communicator. And I do blame the, whatever you want to call it, educational system that's in place. The only thing about communication they really teach you is that you should be super scared when you have to give whatever speech they're assigning you to give. Everyone remembers like not being the one who wants to stand up and give a speech. And then that was it for communication training for the year. This is a great medium to get comfortable talking to or with someone, like just talking. Communicating with others is the fastest way to get to where you want to go, because you can also help others get to where they want to go along the way, which is the connection piece that if you want to defer to me for advice, great. But I'd say if everyone just listen to how Yona conducts his life as well, it's always adding value without expecting anything back. And that's a communication skill.
It is so true. And especially like you're saying, doing the podcast, having those conversations, those communications, but especially if you go back and listen to it. And a lot of people cringe listening to themselves. I make a point to listen to every single episode that I do because I want to, first of all, usually they're great conversations. I want to listen to it, but I also want to learn. And if I make mistakes in certain things that I'll say or how I say them, I can learn and say it better next time. And that's sharpening the saw as well.
It's like watching film in sports, but it's funny you mentioned that because my wife makes fun of me. Every year Spotify will tell you what were your top music, what podcast did you listen to? And my own show is always number one because I want to make sure I don't sound as crazy as I thought I did. And then sometimes it doesn't happen, but whatever. So.
It's so true. Yeah, it's not narcissistic to listen to yourself talk. It's not. It's a skill. A communication building tool is really what it is, especially if you are an educator. You want to make sure that you are giving across the right message in the right way. And that can have a lot to do with sometimes the way you say things or the tones that you use in how you're saying things and just the conversations. Sometimes you hear people, you're just cutting people off and they're saying something. You want to make sure to listen more. And that's good listening to yourself. You're like, oh, wait a second. I didn't give that person the time or the ability to finish what they wanted to say. I should have thought about that a little more and just listened a little more instead of trying to interjecting.
I'm guilty of that for sure.
Yeah, we all are. We all are. But it's great. I love these kind of podcasts, which are much more laid back, much more conversational, especially when they're with friends, because you can get into it and you don't have to worry about, oh, did I say the right thing?
One really awesome thing that we covered at the RaiseMasters retreat last week that I wish you were at, but we'll see at the next one. Do you know where you're at on the disc profile by chance?
What does that mean, a disc profile? I'm not sure. What
D is like driver. I
oh,
is
right. No, I have no idea. I think I did it once, but I don't remember.
You have to have some kind of I in you, right? When
so
I
you
take
can tell
it,
our
like,
listeners what that means. What's it? Just give a little more context.
And I can't remember even what the S or the C That's how I'm an I, because I can't even remember what the S or the C stand for. D is driver, I is influence, S and C. Basically, S and C are like the more analytical, not fast action takers, got to like process things. But then the I is like someone who's like a fast action taker, but sometimes maybe it's not the best time to just dive for it. And then the D. So anyways, Hunter's really strong in the D with a little bit of, I'm like as I as you can get. And that's why I asked you, as I think most connectors probably are an I. Someone who's a really good friend of mine who's super high on the I's is Tate Duryea. I don't know if you ever met Tate before. He's just not trying to toot my own horn here, but he's the life of the party. And that's actually when we were in New Orleans, we were trying to figure out where to go each night. If people would come ask me like, where should we go tonight? I would just hit up Tate. I'd be like, hey, where should we go? Figure out where Tate's going and then tell everyone to go there. Person of influence. And I think you have to be somewhere in that realm yourself.
Probably. Yeah. Listen, there's a lot of these kind of personality tests and scales. To be honest, I've taken some of them over time, but they're not always so right on in from what I've found. But yeah, you have to take everything with a grain of salt. But I'm sure I'm certainly on that influencer tab. I'm definitely
it's like I guess it's like a horoscope, right? You can believe
it has some truth to it, but it's never 100% accurate. For some people it is. And for some people they're like live by it. And I know I have a good friend who uses it very strategically when he hires people in his company to take the test. And he tells them, okay, you're not really cut out for this position, but based on what you've found on the disc, whatever it is, the spectrum there, you're actually really cut out for this other position that I didn't think we needed to hire for, but you'd be great for it. So it definitely can have a great effect.
I think Myers-Briggs is the other one that's popular like that.
Yeah, there's another one also that my wife was telling me about recently. We actually did it together and found out some interesting things. But
the love languages.
That's the love languages. Yeah, the 5 love languages. Those are fun. Adam, we could go on and on for years and decades, but I do want to transition to now what we call the final 4. These are 4 questions I ask all my guests, and feel free to take these questions as long or short as you want to. I usually brief my guests before the episode what the questions are, so they're not totally surprised. Occasionally, we have someone like Adam who's just telling me what they are, and we're going to hear them on the fly. So he has not had any time to prep for these. So the first question...
That's me being an I, right there.
The funny thing is the reason why I do that is I try to prepare people for the episodes is simply because I've been a guest on so many podcasts that a lot of podcast hosts have these kind of final 4, these random questions they ask at the end. And some of them are completely random, have nothing to do with anything. Josh Ferrari, the Creative Capital podcast, is a great example of that. He's awesome. And I love his show. And he does this thing. He pulls out like this deck of cards. It's like the pod deck, I think it's called. And just like random questions that have nothing to do with anything. Is what's your favorite food or something? And you have to tie it into life, into real estate or whatever. And
I like that. That's good.
It's fun. I don't like to surprise people like that because I've been asked questions that I've just been totally stumped by. I don't know if I was a flavor of ice cream, what would it be? Like, what does that even mean? I don't know. But none of my questions are anything like that. First question for you, Adam, is what is the worst job that you ever had?
The one that comes to mind for me first, I'll just probably with all of these, it's going to be whatever comes to mind first. I'll think of something later that maybe was worse. I did work. Shout out to anyone who works there now. I did work for Staples for maybe about 4 months. And that wasn't a lot of fun, but I do look back at my own journey as a professional, as a worker or whatever. I could have performed better there too. I was probably like 17, but that was a job. I don't think I ever really looked forward to going into that one. And I remember basketball season was coming up, and I told my manager there that had basketball coming up. And then I had track and field in the spring, but I'd be coming back in the summer or whatever. And there was zero enthusiasm about me coming back. So it was mutual, right? So shout out to Staples.
Yeah,
The
that's
easy
awesome.
button.
What were you doing? Like stocking shelves? What was that all about?
I think that was the first time I ever really ran a cash register. So I was cashier. I mean, if
You
you've
do
been to a
everything.
Staples before, there's only 4 employees normally in one store at a time. So yeah, a little bit of everything. A lot of paper cuts.
Mm-hmm.
That's not fun. From all the boxes, all the trucks you got to break down and load in the shelves and stuff. I would hate to say any job was bad because I know it helped me get to where I'm at now,
100%.
but we'll go with Staples.
Okay, sounds good. So second question is going to be, what's a book you've read that's given you a paradigm shift?
Wow. One that really rocked my world a lot, I would say 2021, was The Way of the Superior Man by David Data. That was one that I just feel like for a lot of men, I think are struggling. It's going to sound funny, but a lot of men are struggling to be men right now. And I say that as if I have everything figured out, but it just gave me a lot of confidence to know the specific differences between what we would consider masculine and feminine energy, or men and women. A lot of it, I think I was aware of subconsciously, but it helps you become a better spouse, truly a better man to those around you. And then I think if you're a woman, you can get a lot out of it too, because it shows you how your man should be acting. And if he's not acting like that, then that's something else. I would recommend Way of the Superior Man.
Very fascinating. Okay, so that's definitely a new book. Never been mentioned before on the show, I can say confidently. And we'll put it on the reading list. So appreciate that.
My pleasure.
Third question is, what's a skill or talent that you would like to learn?
It's like a superpower, right? It'd be cool if I could fly.
Or anything practically that you'd like,
Which-
hey, I would love to do this.
That would be cool to learn how to fly. I know that would take a lot of time. I don't know if I'm quite there. So let me see, a skill or a talent that I would like to learn. See, the challenge with this question for me, Jon, is I'm going to say it and then I'm going to be like, man, I actually you're going to help me do something new here.
That's exactly the point. That's one of the reasons we asked this.
What's something new? I think it would be pretty cool to learn how to do stand-up comedy. I think it's up there with podcasting and even creating music and whatnot. And when done well, you can make an impact. However you want to. If you want to make people laugh or people hate you, like, it's one of those things. So I'd be cool to practice stand-up comedy.
That's pretty cool. That is a great answer. And again, I don't think anyone's ever said anything like that before, but improv is such an awesome skill to have. And just the communication skill, learning improv is very much connected with stand-up. Obviously, a lot of stand-ups have kind of their script, they have their bits and they put it through, but a lot of them just do a lot of improv and just feeding off the crowd. It really does depend, obviously, what type of stand-up comedian you are, but it can have such a huge impact, like you said, on people. Making people happy, making people laugh is so awesome. It's such a powerful tool. So if you're a funny person, and even if you're not, I encourage you, just try to tell one joke a day. Try to make someone laugh or make someone smile. It's such an awesome thing to do.
That's the actionable step after today's episode, everyone. Tell one joke a day.
It's actually pretty hard. You might buy one of those calendars that has a joke a day on you, peel off the page.
Yeah.
Okay, final question is, what does success mean to you?
Success means getting clear on who you've been called to serve. Because I think that I'll use I mentioned getting into the Hall of Fame the last year. That was an incredible moment and feeling, but it goes away very fast. And you know what, I heard Tony Robbins talk about this on a podcast recently, and I might get it butchered a little bit, but basically he's found after all of his years of trying this and trying that in different models and different mission statements, and he's made an impact for a long time in his life, but he's like, I've just boiled it down to this one thing. Every day when I wake up, I just ask, how can I help?
Mm-hmm.
Plain and simple. How can I help?
Yeah.
And maybe that isn't even getting clear on who you've been called to serve. It's just asking that question. Thank you for allowing me to think it out here. That's what success is, waking up every day and simply asking, how can I help?
It's so in line with what my feelings are on the question as well. And probably very similar to what I answered when I had the 300th episode where Carlson interviewed me. Very similar. And I love that. So thank you for sharing that. And thank you for taking the time to think that out and express that, articulate that. Finally, Adam, where can our listeners find you or reach out to you if they want to?
Just connecting on LinkedIn. It keeps it simple. It's one place to go to. If you're not on LinkedIn for whatever reason,
I can't imagine someone listening to the podcast not on LinkedIn. But if you guys aren't, get it. Come on.
If you're not on LinkedIn, go create an account. That's it. We're getting you on LinkedIn today. Create an account and connect with me there. That would be my number one way.
Awesome. And make sure to hit the connect button, not just the follow button, and write a little note to Adam telling him you heard him on Weiss Advice. Would love that. And we'll make sure to put his link to his LinkedIn in the show notes and any other places he can be found. Instagram, I know as well. It's been awesome, Adam. I appreciate you taking the time. Like we said, this has been a long time coming and totally worth the wait because this was a lot of fun. And I really appreciate you and appreciate your time.
Totally agree. I'm glad we did wait for this moment. And I look forward to the next time we get to connect.
Awesome. And to our listeners, thank you guys for joining us for this wonderful conversation all the way to the end. Once again, remember, the best advice comes only when you ask.
Real quick, I have one question for you. Did you like this episode? If you did, I want to ask you a huge favor. See, the biggest thing that helps this podcast grow and that will spread this message to the whole world is that if you leave a review, a rating, and subscribe to the podcast. What that does is it basically tells the platforms that this podcast is out on is that you like my stuff and I'm doing something right. So take a few seconds out of your day, hit that subscribe button, leave a rating or review. I would be extremely grateful. Also, I want to hear from you guys. So I want to hear some feedback. If you have any questions for future episodes, please find me on LinkedIn. Send me a DM, a connection request, Yona Weiss, and I'd love to hear from you.